Hi, and welcome to Module 3. In this module, we're going to be talking all about the user. In the previous two topics, we talked about user experience as a principle and also the user-centered design process. So let's get stuck into understanding the importance of the user. So user experience and user-centered design puts the user at the center of the focus. So some of the information you might want to know about your users could be who they are, gender, age, likes and dislikes. What do they like or dislike about a product or a service? What are their behaviors when they're engaging your website? What are the tasks that they perform? And how often do they perform those tasks? Ultimately, what goal is it that they're trying to achieve where they're using your website? And what is the experience that they have? Do they walk away happy, smiling, frustrated? But also, there's certain things that you don't want to know about your users or you might want to not include in your research. It's also important to know what those are. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're a designer responsible for designing a mobile phone. And what if I told you you had to design this mobile phone for the age range of 80 to 85-year-old? Now, that mobile phone is going to look very different. It might be larger. It might have bigger buttons so it's easier to press. It might have larger screens. The audio might be louder. And it might have less features on that phone. What if I then told you you had to design that mobile phone for a 5-year-old? Now, I'm not saying let's just go and give a 5-year-old a mobile phone, but obviously the needs of that user will be very different to an 85-year-old. Another example, imagine you were designing a digital camera. Again, the camera would be very different if it was for the high-end market, like a professional photographer, or the consumer market, the happy snappers. Let me give you an example of an online space. Imagine you were designing a website for the legal profession. That website would look, feel, and have many different contents if it was aimed at legal professionals, like a lawyer, compared to the general public, and the purpose of the website being to educate the public about the function and the purpose of the legal industry. Understanding the needs of your users is like mitigating risk. As a user experience designer, if you don't know who your users are and what they need, in effect, you're designing with a bit of a bias, you're perhaps a bit more subjective, and you're taking on the risk of designing something that's not going to be fit for purpose. As I often tell people, imagine this is a user, or this is you as a designer. If you're designing without understanding who your users are, it's like designing with blindfolds on. So people often ask the question, when is the best time to understand the needs of a user? I typically tell them earlier in the project, the start, the better. Now, there's certain places you could go to actually find information about your users. You could do some research on them. Jump on the computer and do some research. You might want to talk to them face to face. You might want to even read about them. There might be some research papers out there. The most important thing you need to realize, though, about the user experience and user-centered design process is that you need to observe your users. You need to observe them in context, in real life, performing the tasks that they perform. And that's a magnifying glass to remind you. You're not always going to have the opportunity to do these. You might not have the time, you might not have the budget, you might not have the skill set. The only person you might be left to talk to might be a stakeholder or a subject matter expert within the organization. That's still better than nothing. Anything you can do to find out some insight about who your users are and what they need is better than none. In the next topic, I'm actually going to talk about what are the types of information you need to know to be able to actually engage in a research project.